Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 369 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels coming to you from Sandusky, Ohio, a very early morning in Sandusky, Ohio, as this episode is going to be beginning at 5 a.m. my time. Typically, I'm up now getting ready to go to school, but when there's a 16-hour time difference, sometimes you got to get up even earlier. So, in this episode, I'm going to be sitting down with Sly and Spook from the Collingwood Rant podcast, and we're going to be previewing the Pies for 2025. This will be the third year in a row that these gentlemen have joined me, and very funny guys. You know, they're supporting a very powerful club, and looking forward to talking all thing Magpies because little bit of a down year for them last year. Now, folks, don't forget that you can find everything over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com, about the podcast. I do hope you'll get over there and subscribe. Follow the links. So it'll take you to my Facebook page. You can follow there. Follow me on Twitter at yank_on. It'll take you over to YouTube as well. I don't think my Rumble page is linked on there as well, but as soon as I'm able to link that one on there, I will put it on there. But I'm backloading my catalog onto Rumble, and I've got most of my recent episodes, and all the previews are going to be up on my YouTube channel as well. You can find those there. I hope you'll share the podcast with your friends and family and tell them about this crazy American who loves your game and truly appreciates you sharing it with me. So, without that, let's go ahead and jump into my chat with Sly and Spook from Collingwood Rants. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for our next preview episode, and I am thrilled to be joined for the third year in a row by the hosts of the Collingwood Rants podcast, Sly and Spook. And gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
In Melbourne,
well,
it's,
thank you.
what is it, Spook? 40 degrees? We're dying here.
It's
It's
40
dying in the
degrees. We
heat.
had a 72-hour light show last night with thunder and lightning. I've never seen nothing like it.
Huh. That's
Amazing.
I did see some stuff online. A lot of people online in Geelong were posting about how much rain they'd been receiving down there as well. Um, so we're here to talk about your beloved Magpies. You're a year removed from the flag. Um,
Hang
I
on,
think
hang on.
it's
I'm still trying to process beloved.
they're not your beloved Magpies, or
I'm
is
still
this
trying
They
to
a
are,
process the word
they
flag.
are sometimes.
trying to process flag? Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, I had this been you mentioning to me, Super Bowl champion Cleveland Browns, I probably would have had a stroke sitting right here. But um,
Cleveland
I'm,
Brown,
I'm
who does he play for?
yeah, right. Yeah, that's it's a really, really bad NFL team. So, you know, the I think you guys and I can kind of commiserate a little bit because we both got to experience something very similar. Our club winning a flag and then coming up short the following year from playing finals. Um, for varied reasons. You guys had a lot of injuries last year. Um, how was the hangover last year? I mean, how did it feel to know that you didn't miss the eight by much. You missed it by percentage points, but of course it was to Carlton also. So that had to make it even more palatable.
But I mean, look, it's actually funny when I was having dinner with some friends, and one was a Carlton fan, and I just like stirring him, and she goes, "Well, we made the finals." And I'm just sort of sitting there thinking, so this is what you're celebrating. You're making a final, not kicking a goal for a half, and losing and bombing straight out. How, how far have they fallen? That's your celebration. I
Yeah.
mean, for me, it's like you're in it to win it. So if you're not a developmental team, you're in it to actually win it. So it's disappointing that we totally missed out. But I think there's a lot of mitigating factors with the short turnaround of the season. They played that stupid round zero, whatever it was called. They started having a string of injuries. I think they got fanned out a little bit defensively. I think they made some mistakes rejigging the whole football department the year after they'd won the flag to cover for the one guy who didn't want to be there anymore. So hopefully they've learned from all that, and going into the new season, there's a lot more solidarity.
We
And
we obviously discussed it a fair bit during the season. One other thing I was going to add to what Sly said is I think mentally too that it's to climb that mountain again. It's becoming a challenge for a lot of clubs. And I think statistically or something that there's been quite a few of recent times that have failed to back up the following year. And I think that's endemic of I think mentally we had a documentary. It was that Climb the Steps, And there was a number of scenes in that where they were talking about the effort required. And you could see it on their faces that okay, getting through each game is getting harder and harder. And when we won the prelim, they had a very telling interview with Darcy Moore about and he just like pretty much lost it about like you do all this work and we're there and it's so hard and everything. And you're looking at that in retrospect, going, I think that carried across with a lot of players into
Hmm.
this year that they knew how much effort was required to win one now, but they just knew they couldn't produce that again. And a lot of that was telling in our performances. I think sometimes you gotta miss something to realize how much you miss it. And hopefully this is the reason to relaunch.
And what do you think were the key factors for them not, stumbling a little bit and finishing ninth last year? What if you had to list like three things that you said this is why we didn't get there? What would those three things be?
Oh, look, I think injury
Um,
you'd have to concede as one. I suppose mental motivational drive would be one for me. The third is not winning enough games.
yeah, that third one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking,
Um, it's actually interesting though that you look at like Geelong. Oh, what year was it? What year was it that Melbourne pretended to win the flag? What was it, 20 or
2018.
2021 or something?
Oh,
Was it
no, it
18?
wasn't
No, it
eight.
wouldn't
It
have been
wasn't
18.
18.
We were losing the grand final in 18.
No, it wasn't eight.
It's
Yeah,
2020. I'm pretty sure it was the
that
COVID year.
18 was West Coast. Yeah, it was 21. Yeah.
And there was that Geelong had a pretty strong season. And in the finals, they just sort of imploded. And I think Chris Scott was saying at the time that there was players who were just really sore. And it
Yeah.
just shows how precariously balanced the season is that, you got to get everything working right. You got to enter the finals and have like a relatively fresh list. You just need to be a little bit off. And it all falls away. And I think one of the things last year, we were just a little bit off in a lot of things. Yeah. And I think, as good as Nick Dacos is, with injuries to DeGoey, Taylor Adams departing,
Right,
Tom
check.
Mitchell being out,
Yeah.
Pendlebury missing a chunk of the season, Sidebottom missing games here and there. It was just like it was leaving it to too few. And Nick's a 20, 21-year-old kid, so he can't do it all alone. I
Right.
actually thought Darcy Moore looked so fatigued for the bulk of the year. He didn't really start coming good until about the last 6 weeks. I think a lot of the defensive six really struggled. I think Oleg Markov was a really good barometer because in that grand final year, he seized the spot, and he usurped
Hmm.
John Noble
And
and got
and
one
now
of,
he's
but the
and
following
now
year,
they're
he barely got a look in.
yeah,
So
now they're
it's
both
like
going.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he's on the rookie list now. But in terms of like just sort of saying, I thought it was pretty emblematic of just lacking that tiny little bit of hunger that you need. And it just needs to be a little bit off from a few players and you fall away. So, and I think just strategically, they struggled in some areas. I think it was a big
Yeah, I
mistake
mean,
changing all the line coaches.
you also look at the loss of Murphy, and it's clearly evident cohesively how much structure he brought to that back line, and that was a massive hole to fill. Yeah, especially the way that Darcy played with him and without him.
Yeah, and I was looking at your, just like some of the rankings here. Tom Mitchell only played in 6 games. You've got just a
Well, it's
lot of
also a lot of
people,
the forward line. Elliott played about half the year.
yeah,
Mychek played about
my
half
check
the
11
year.
games. Yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, and I wonder, and that's one of the things that I am really curious about, because the Dacos brothers can certainly carry and lift more than a lot of pairs of players on any club. But do you worry about having enough options, viable options in your forward structure to score consistently? I mean, Mychek, I would love to have a Brody Mychek on my club because he
Yeah.
does everything pretty darn well. But he's not, you know, he's not likely to be winning a Coleman Award or contending for that anytime soon.
No. I mean, I think the model that McRae, the coaches, have employed, it really is about sharing the goals.
Hmm.
It's not about having sort of that one key forward. I mean, he obviously wants a key forward, so I'm not saying he doesn't want it. But in the 3 years he's been there, you look at the goal spread, it's gone across their small forwards and big forwards. But it is a main concern. But in terms of I think last year the big issue was the midfield. It was just they really struggled to, get going. And like I said, Nick was playing a lone hand a lot of the time. I mean, that would be my bigger concern is you burn out Nick because he just doesn't have enough insulation around him. The go he missed pretty much the bulk of the year. You missed Tom Mitchell burrowing in under packs to win the
Yep,
ball out
yep.
for him. So I'm hoping, the go is fit this year and, you get a full year out of Pendlebury pretty much. And then hopefully someone like Ed Allen comes up and takes a spot. And you have a better spread with Perryman and Houston there also. So other guys can play cameos there. I mean, I'd love another quality midfielder, like, an established one. But
Hmm.
the sort of, like a lot of teams, you're banking on who's coming up.
So, I think that, we can, the three of us can kind of commiserate a little bit that we all three support clubs that have been considered to be older. And again,
Yeah.
being my age, I still have a hard time, calling somebody who's, 31 years old. I just it hurts my brain to say that. But it's, in footy reality, once you get to that north side of that, I mean, you're going to start to see, for the most part, people start to miss a step and slow down and that sort of thing. Are you concerned about that happening with this club that you're so reliant on, I think there's a dozen players who are at 30 plus right now on the list. Do you worry about them all turning into, maybe lemmings is the bad analogy to use here, but kind of all jumping off the cliff at the same time?
It's
Um,
a distinct possibility. I
it
mean,
is
they're all
concern, yeah.
close to the end. I think it just means you're elevating the risk and likelihood of it happening.
Yeah.
You hope that I mean, because they're all skilled and seasoned players, you hope that they can get through a season, but
Hmm.
there has to be a way that they particularly manage some of the loads with some of these guys this year, and that'll be interesting. Because the other thing is, we've played exceptionally older for the last 2 years, if not
Right, right.
more. We haven't really introduced a lot of youth into the side. You're looking for that. Who's going to be the replacements for XXXX? We haven't done a lot of that. We ended up having to do it through injuries last year, and you got to see some kids play well and all that sort of thing. But it's just not like it's a consistent thing. And I think clearly
Well,
this year it's
that's,
going to have to be that case that you're going to have to
yeah.
bring
I mean, that,
in and out, but not just 1 week. Just give them extended runs, rest this guy, and you'll all be building towards hopefully making finals and going
well,
deep.
that would be my concern with McRae, but he hasn't really um, incorporated the youth into the long-term planning. It is like they
Hmm.
come in for a week or two. They're often the first to play sub. They're often the first to be subbed. And I think he had opportunities at times where he probably could have just said, "Hey, I'm going to give you a block of 4 weeks," and you would have found out a little bit more about them. So I don't know if it's just simply the quality hasn't been there to demand that. Obviously Nick came in and he demanded a spot. But
Right,
I
right.
think there was a couple of times he probably could have said to, like Finley McRae's, and I've been agnostic about Finley McRae since we got him. But having said that, I don't think he's really had a great opportunity to just show his wares. And you think about the development of a kid like that, how does that impact him knowing, hey, I'm likely to be dropped or subbed? Uh, you know, so does that make him a little bit gun shy in the way he plays? So, and last year and the year before, even the Premiership year, he had to go out for 6 weeks for suspension.
Hmm.
From memory, side bottom was out for about 6 to 8 weeks of a knee injury. And I thought that should have been the time he just said, let's play whoever it is for 4 weeks and just say, you're going to get 4 weeks at this. You're going to get a good run at this. Don't worry, you're not going to be dropped. But he's constantly gravitated to the older players, the more senior players. And maybe that's just also an indictment on the list cultivation over the last 10 years that, that they haven't really brought in the youth, and particularly the quality youth, and the guys that they've brought in, like Jaden Stevenson, ended up imploding and,
Yeah, I mean,
leaving the club.
yeah, I'm looking at the list, and you've got, you're on par with, the number of players that have played, single digits or fewer games. I mean, I'm counting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. There's a dozen players who have played 8 games or less, and
Yeah.
8 of them have not yet played a senior game because they're just So I mean, there is youth there,
I mean, one of
but
the other problems too is the way the VFL is structured with all the injuries we had last year. There was like
Mhm.
VFL teams who were fielding with a handfield of listed players, and the VFL was just getting smashed every week. And you think
Right.
that wouldn't have been a great grounds for cultivating players because they just couldn't get system going because they just didn't have the players. They got all these ringers from the VFL team. Yeah, I mean, so it's an interesting one because if they have a few injuries and guys aren't ready to come up, then it becomes quite a hole.
Yeah, and I guess that leads to where do you think, and I know we're going to go through 2025 and with the date that brought you to the dance. I mean, that's because with the list that brought you to the
Yep.
dance here, but and I know you don't necessarily want to look ahead at 2026, but realistically, if you're looking ahead at even the following season, how many of these older players or who do you think may be it for them this year? I mean, Scott Pendlebury is 37 years old, and again, still considerably younger than I am, but in terms of footy, footy that is he is a seasoned veteran to say the very least.
Well, it's hard to tell because, as you said, like the bottom can just drop out, and you often see older players, they go from looking okay to suddenly they're just a step behind everything.
Yeah.
So you can't really predict that because it hits different players at different times. And then you get someone like, for example, Nathan Buckley when he played, he won the Brownlow in 03. 04, 05, he just had hamstring injuries both years. 06, he played most of the season as a forward. And 07, he had hamstring injuries again. And then he
Hmm.
was retired. And you would have thought, geez, he's won a Brownlow. He's at the top of his game. And then he barely played after that. So you don't know how their bodies are going to cope. I mean, the one thing I'll say, and it's not defense of Collingwood's list strategy, because Spook and I often mentioned this on the rant, that, we would have liked to see some newer kids brought in. But I mean, generally, you're looking at the league and players generally are playing up to
Hmm.
older than they used to, like used to be 30 was pretty much that. That was it. You were gone. And you'd have the exception every now and again. But nowadays you seem to have sort of older players at other all around the competition. It's obviously they prepare better. Post match they're better. They take care of themselves a lot better. So it's really going to be an individual experience as to when they go. I think though by the end of the year they're going to have to force 2 of them out. Hopefully they choose themselves, but I would have
Yeah.
said like a couple of years ago, I would have at least forced one of them out and just said we need to start cultivating the youth. But I guess with McRae coming from Brisbane and that, he just thought, well, let's just load up again and go for it.
That's yeah, and I think you brought up a great point about how you know being a footy player, at the highest level is now a full-time job. But if you go back, a generation, it still wasn't. But so these, these players now they're not, they're able to go in and deal with, the specific training regimens and the treatments that they need to keep their bodies working. That, you know, you go back to somebody who was playing the game in 1985, maybe even
Yeah.
1995. Those options weren't there because they were off working maybe their other
Yeah.
job to supplement their income at that point in time. So that, yeah, so you had other careers that were being developed at that point. So it's, I think, that the longevity thing, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Um, and I guess I've never really explored this. Has there, I probably should look into this if there's ever been a player that's played in the AFL past the age of 40, and there may be, and I just haven't.
No, I don't
I
think that. I mean, unless it happened in the 1900s or something. I mean,
Yeah.
Duncan Fletcher, Craig Bradley, they would have played into their late 30s. I don't know exactly what age. I can't think
Michael
of anyone
Tuck.
in it. Yeah, he
Michael
would have
Tuck
been
did.
late 30s. Yeah. And Tuck was an interesting one because I thought he was still playing well. And they sort of made the decision, well, we're going to force you out. Um, but I can't recall anyone playing in their 40s. Like it might have been some novelty, as I said, back in the 1900s,
Yeah.
where if you're physically capable, the pace of the game probably would have been quite different. So you would have been differentiated by age. But yeah, no, not. I can't think of anyone.
So if everyone maintains the health the way that they that you hope that they do, that they stay healthy throughout the season, that some of these players get managed, maybe you see, you know, a Pendlebury and maybe a side bottom, not make a trip to Perth or to Adelaide or something like that, and just get that week off to get some youth on the ground and just give them a chance to rest up and not have to do all the traveling there. Have the two of you discussed what your expectations are? Is this a finals club this year? Is this a club that can contend for a top four side in your mind?
Yeah. Look, it's obviously you're depending on what happens around you too. Like I thought last year was it wasn't really the year of a powerhouse club or anything. So, and you look at us, we were like fourth at one stage in the middle of the year, and I thought that was
Hmm.
amazing that we could be there. And I think for now, it is a pretty narrow competition. The worry is some of these clubs who have been hoarding top 10 picks, and if they make a jump and become like that monster club. But I think we're capable. I think we've improved on the list from last year. So if all things are equal, you don't get injuries to that extent. You've improved the club with Houston and Perryman. So, and that Ed Allen actually got a look in.
Yeah,
So I imagine it'd be a top four. By the way, Dustin Fletcher's last game was at 40 years and 23 days.
there we go. Okay, okay.
And Vic Cumberland, I can't believe you didn't pick him up, Spook, but he retired at 43.
So soft.
He played in 1898. You should go tell him that.
I was gonna say he's probably got a couple of good games left in him. Yeah,
Oh,
he
well,
can.
I'm sure Melbourne's probably got him on the list for this year.
So,
They're like an old-fashioned player.
is it's let's put it this way. Could this be, if some of these senior players begin to break down? And again, I'm not advocating for that. I'm not an opposing
You're not
supporter that's,
advocating for it. Why is there a voodoo doll behind you with Scott Pendlebury's jumper on?
um
Oh,
I don't have
sorry,
that.
that's
I've
a
got an Akaya Cockatoo button, and I've got a couple little koala bear things up here next to my empty Vegemite jars, but
yeah.
that's it.
Sorry for Spook continually interrupting you. Go on.
But could it be, if Pendlebury and Howe and Bottom begin to slow down, um and the club misses out on finals, could it still be considered a successful season
No,
if you if oh, there was a comma there, sorry. If some of the young players that you've discussed that maybe need to start coming in and getting some games step up and show that they are ready to take that next step in 2026?
I think they've loaded the list for finals. So if they don't make finals, it's a failure. I mean, it'd be great as a byproduct that you get young games into the young kids,
Uh-huh.
but they've obviously loaded up for the here and now. So they need gratification in the here and now.
No,
I think you look at
there isn't. Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was going to say, you look at Richmond, I don't think any Richmond supporters are really grieving too much over being wooden spooners after free flags.
Yeah,
So, right now, Collingwood wants success right now. So unless they get it, anything else, I mean, you get a bonus getting these kids playing. But I mean, on the flip side, you might get these kids playing and by the end of the year, you go, holy shit, not one of them's good enough. And then you're even further back. So,
Then yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
yeah. I was going to say that it really does feel like there's a very shallow pool when it comes to talent with the younger guys coming through each draft. We're about to go into a phase that I love with AFL where there's a new club coming that are going to just dominate, getting all access to the good players or the
hmm.
good young players. With Tasmania coming in, that
Yeah.
you've really got to look, and I think the club's done that, and I think they've clearly looked at Geelong's model and think it's one that's it's worth pursuing, and that you're going to get a lot more value during this period out of recycled or close to senior players. And we're going to see more of a trend of that, and I think we'll be carrying less young talent through the games, which is sort of kind of unfortunate because you do want to see some, injection of speed and youth and exuberance come into the side. I mean, I think the only one that we're really talking about is Mick McGuan's
Yeah,
son, who's
next year,
training with us
I
at the
think. Yeah.
moment, and I think clearly we'll take him with whatever it is, the father-son, however it's going to work next year, with that particular pick. And that's one person that's touted to be an exciting machine. But geez, I mean, before I come in here, I looked at our 3 draft picks we took, and I'd completely forgotten who they were. It's just really. I mean, we took them at. Let me just go back to my notes: 47, 55, and 62. You tend not to see a lot of excitement down that level. The odd one will pop up and do something incredible, but generally they're just bit part players at that point. And you sort of think, well, I think you're going to get more excited about the Houstons coming in at 27 and Perryman at, was he 25, 26 or something? They're seasoned players, and they're going to add instant options for us. And I think that's
Well,
going
you
to
go back
continue to
to
be the case.
yeah, you go back to the 202, 203 grand final losses. I mean, in oh
Why?
04, oh 05, because they haunt us. But you go back to, and then oh 04, oh 05 were just disastrous seasons. And then from oh 06, they brought in Dale Thomas and, Scott Pendlebury came in. And then all these other kids that came through around the same time. I mean, Cloak and Swan were starting to hit his straps. It was a really exciting time, seeing all that talent out there. And then 4 years later, they were rewarded with a flag. And then 1 year after that, the club decided it's probably best we disassemble this. Can't have this sort of success at the club. Let's get rid of the coach. But you don't really get that anymore. I mean, and I mean, who was our last top 10 pick? Was it Stevenson? And they've blown top 10 picks over the last 10, 15 years too. So that's another concern. I do sort of, a little bit, I sort of disagree with Spooky is you can find some genuine guns later on, but they're real surprises. I was having this conversation with a Geelong friend. Tom Stewart's the best player in that draft. He was taken at like pick 41 or something.
Yeah.
Retrospectively, he'd be pick 1 in that draft.
Well,
So
look at what happened this past year when everybody during the trade period in 2023, when Saba Radaglia was wanting to finally get to Port Adelaide, and the Cats were like, well, we still want this pick in the 60s, or we're not going to make the deal. And everybody's thinking, what the hell are you doing, Geelong? Just get what you can get for him. And they held out for that pick. Turned out to be that young kid Lawson Humphrey, who came in like round 16 and didn't leave
looked
the
really
ground
good.
after that. So it's so you and I guess maybe that, and I'm on the periphery. You guys are infinitely more wise about this because you're there. You're around your club a lot more than certainly I am, since I've never actually seen any of them in person. But it has to, it has to be people who are out scouting these youngsters that play in places, and just, say that kid's got something that if maybe we get the chance to get him, maybe we could do something late, like you said with Tom Stewart, with the Lawson Humphrey, and I think we could probably go back and look and see that there are players who've been taken late in the draft that that people maybe missed, just not that they weren't considered any good, that maybe they just never got to get eyes on them.
Well, you go back to like Matthew
Seeing an increase in
Pavlich.
the strike rate with the mid-season draft, you are unearthing some mature, talented players there. And I think some of them, some of these kids that are cut, they're cut too quickly. Generally, I think on average, your average AFL career is two point something years long. You've got a couple of years to show something, and you got to show it damn quick. Otherwise, you're on the scrap heap. Either you go away and you dramatically miss what you had, or you've got hunger to try and keep trying and trying. I think like Sullivan on our team's a great example of that persistence, that you've been knocked back that many times, but you keep presenting and you keep working hard.
That's the same as my check.
It can happen. Yeah, and you're seeing there's a lot of players now that are probably acknowledging that it's not over when it's over. You can come back in.
That's a big thing. Like, I've always believed that the mature age draftees are a really overlooked resource, because one of the problems with a lot of these kids is they're coming in at 70 kilos, whatever it is, 160 pounds. They're just underweight. And, they disappear. They come back at 24, 25. They now have the body development. My check was matching it with players from the start. And that's because he came in as like a 24-year-old, I think it was. So, I think that's a really undeveloped resource. But I was going to say with Pavlich before, I mean, he was in the draft a year before he went and nobody took him. And then a year later, he went at pick 4 or whatever it was. And he's no doubt the best player in that draft and one of the legends of the game. So you can see how much sort of sometimes just a bit of time, bit of development can really change the equation. And it's like a sliding doors thing. Sometimes I feel for players who get drafted and end up at disastrous clubs. And you think, what would this person's career been like if they were at a better club? There's some players who are obviously going to be self-made, like Joel Selwood, Nathan Buckley, Scott Pendlebury. I think they would have been guns anywhere. But there's a lot of players who I think need careful nurturing early in their careers. And if they don't get that, you think, geez, what could his career be?
That's a great point. I look at you talked about the the youngsters coming in who are just not really developed, and I joked with somebody just the other day that I've in my classroom I've got like team photos of the Cats from 2017 and 2022, and you see Zach Guthrie, who's turned into a pretty decent defender.
Yeah.
But you look at that picture from 2017, it's like he'd never covered the vocabulary word puberty in school. I mean, it's just he just looks like a boy, a young amongst men there, and it's like now he's he's grown into that role, and he's so I think, and that's one of the interesting things about this game that the players are coming in, the players who are coming into the biggest clubs are coming in at age 17 and 18. And, the fact that, as you said, that their bodies haven't necessarily matured yet, that's a really, really good point. And I wonder, and this is something that's popped into my head here, and this is kind of not germane to the Pies, but the league as a whole, that they talk about, wanting to deal with head injuries and such. And there's always this discussion about how the human brain is not fully formed until the age of 25. And this just popped into my head here. Should there be something that they maybe consider mandating that players who are 25 or under, that they be mandated to wear the little helmets that Caleb Daniel wears to try to lessen the impact of concussions? I don't know. It just popped into my head. I didn't have that written down. That just kind of came
I
to
don't
me
know,
there as
man,
we
because
talked
I
about
think
that.
they talk about it's not necessarily the collision, it's the whiplash of the head.
Yeah.
So the brain moves around in that. Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really difficult one. And you get players who are a lot more vulnerable to concussions like Nathan Murphy, and Angus Brayshaw. So I don't know. It's such a physical game.
Right.
You can try and protect players, but it is such a physical game that, it's impossible to cover every possibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, up until last year, or yeah, it is last year now, with my son's junior footy, that it was mandatory they had to wear the headgear. But it was dropped from this year onwards, so it becomes, clearly it's optional. But conversely, though, like he plays football and basketball in both sports now at a very junior level, the concussion stuff's taken incredibly seriously. They demonstrate any impact. It's the same as the AFL. They're out for 2 weeks. They go and play. There is, I suppose, a case to say, well, surely if you're taking it that seriously, there's going to be some sort of headgear that's going to help. And I don't think, like Sly said, there's nothing that's going to stop that. The brain sloshing around, no matter whether you're impacted wearing protection or not.
Yeah. So who on the club that has not made a name for themselves as a Magpie as of yet are you the most excited about? Who are you thinking, I cannot wait till early March to see this guy out on the ground because they're going to look so good in the black and white?
Oh,
I
probably
think
for
me, it's
me,
Allen.
yeah, he'd be one. Tiak Chia, I can't pronounce his name. Chiaf, yeah, he's yeah, sorry, yeah. He'd be another one. He's got to put in a little bit of size. Probably another one is Vic Cumberland, recruited from Melbourne in the 1800s, coming into the side as a 140-year-old. He'll look good.
Okay.
I think he's going to run through the banner with a chainsaw in front of him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, after the year last year, I'd just be happy to see Geordie De Goey run out there, because he had such a horrible year last year.
That's
So
a
some of
good
these
point.
guys are going to be coming back almost as recruits.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So But those two would probably be at the forefront.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been agnostic about him, but I'd really like to see Finley McRae do well, if for no other reason than we just need someone to do well. Um, and the other guy, Iliro Schmidt, the ruckman, I know the club value him, so he's another possibility too.
Yeah, I mean, short of injuries, he's not going to push Cox or what's his name? The good
Cameron,
ruckman. Cameron, that's
Cumberland,
it. It's it's
Cumberland, Vic
it's
Cumberland.
Cumberland. It's been a few months before I had to think about Collingwood. Yeah, he's not going to push them out of the way unless there's some sort of injury. So, but I think there clearly is some excitement around him, but I think he'd be on very limited opportunities this year.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I'll give him a look in every now and again. I mean, again, another one, and obviously with the tall players, bigger players, they take even longer to physically develop. Midfielders who might rely primarily on speed and can evade, physical contact and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I can't really think of anyone else. But again, like after last year, just be good to see some of it. Like, Isaac Quaynor played pretty much the whole year from memory, but he really had a down year. So just seeing him out there fit and firing would be as good as a recruit.
He's
That's
having a
true.
great preseason.
Oh,
And
yeah,
as you said,
that's a
you
shock.
had so many people. You had so many people that missed so many key games that you are in many ways bringing in new recruits who have been playing for the club for a considerable amount of
Well,
time. That have 140, 150 games in their career that because they've been there so long, but
yeah.
they've been so banged up that it's like you're getting
Well, unless they have a mass drop off of like the aged players, they've improved the list from last year. They've brought in
Mhm.
Houston instead of Noble or Markov, and Houston's an upgrade, with no disrespect intended to the other two. They brought in Perryman. I don't know a lot about him, but he'd be a solid contributor. So they've brought in a couple of guys who will plug into their starting 18. Um, so they've improved the list, like I said, unless you have a massive drop off suddenly. But then I actually wouldn't mind if one of those guys does have a massive drop off, and that just forces them to make at least one change, so that
Yeah,
you start to get some of that turnover happening.
yeah,
I mean, I just hope it's not Pendlebury, and I hope with Pendlebury that you know if he does have a massive drop off, that they don't try and carry him, because that will be detrimental to the team. But then on the flip side, you don't want to see him finishing his career in the VFL running around, at these suburban grounds.
right,
Um,
right. Now,
and that's just the case with any great player. It's just it's a sad way to see them finish their career. I remember Mick
yeah, and
Malthouse used
and
to say,
be, you want him to go. You want him to go
yeah,
on his terms. You
yeah,
want him to be
yeah.
able to say there, hang his boots up in his locker and go, I've done everything I can do here. It's time to move on to the next phase of
Well,
my life, whatever that may be.
yeah. I mean, Nathan Buckley wanted to play again in 2008, and Malthouse just said no. And Malthouse used to just say, I think it's better to retire with a little left in the tank rather
Hmm.
than go out with nothing, and you end up in the reserves and that sort of stuff. And I think that's true of all champion players in any sport. You see them run around when they're just lost that step, and the
Yeah.
younger guys are a lot hungrier and beating
So,
them. So
looking at your fixture a little bit here. I mean, the schedule makers didn't do you a whole lot of favors in terms of starting out the year. You got the Giants, Port Adelaide, the Bulldogs, the Blues, and the Swans the first 5 weeks. I mean, that's a pretty solid run through the first 5 rounds of the season. It's going to really test your mettle and see where you really are there.
yeah, I mean, I'm sort of a disagree for a lot of Collingwood supporters, because um, I don't care
There's a
what it
shot.
is. The fixture is the fixture.
Yeah.
And you run around talking about it's too hard, or it's why is it unfair, or why is Carlton got a better fixture, or whatever. You're actually sort of insulating the side to go, here's an excuse for you to fail. It's just like,
Mm.
screw it. It is what it is. You just go out, and if you're good enough, you win. And if you're not, you're not. Don't bring in all these qualifications as to why you might fail.
Yeah.
So if you do that, you're just pre-arming the club to fail. And this club's done this for years. There's always been reasons as to why they haven't been good enough. And it's just like, just screw that. Just say that's what it is. Now let's go out and do it.
That's
I know
that.
Spook.
I like that attitude. I like that. I like that. That's you've got we won't even get into who you're doubling up against them because of that very reason then. But I mean, but it's you've got for finishing outside the 8, you have a pretty strong draw.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, the other thing is too, and again, I'm not, it just, there's usually a couple who drop out of the 8 and have disastrous
right,
seasons. Usually
right.
a couple who come up from the bottom
Yeah.
6 and have
I
great
have
seasons. So you never know sometimes which
I
way
have a
it's going to
couple
go
in my
anyway.
mind. I have a couple in my mind who are going to drop out of the 8, and I have one shocker who I think is going to be in the 8 this year that a lot of people have, given me this look like, really? Are you sure about that? Yeah,
Who's a Vic Cumberland?
Is it North Melbourne?
it is. It is. Yeah. That's who I'm
Oh,
thinking is
it's
going
at
to.
some point their talent has to gel. They're
I
going to be
think
good.
I think they're going to
Yeah.
be this year's Hawthorn. I just think they're going to make this leap. Now they may fall short of the 8, but I think they're going to people are going to finally go, "Oh, okay, that's a much better club now than we thought they were." I just I think they are they need to do it for one. Okay, and I honestly I think the Blues, somebody talked me into that one the other day. I think the Blues and the Swans both may fall out of the 8.
The
Swans, I'd
Swans are an
agree with.
interesting one.
Yeah, that's and I think
Generally, yeah.
Port Adelaide, I think is going to struggle to score this year also. They'd already started to phase out Charlie Dixon, but losing Todd Marshall is not going to be an easy replacement. You got Georgiades, you got Lukosius, you got Ollie Lord, but I don't know if that's going to be enough for them.
Oh,
We'll
they
have to
do
see.
have Radaglia.
Yeah, but he's a defender now, unless they've started moving him forward. But yeah, that's
Is he?
they're more than welcome to hang on to him. But
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing a game Collingwood Geelong years ago, and I thought, geez, he's really got something. And then watching him at that Port, it was like, geez, he just, for a guy of that size, who'd just be crushing anyone in his way,
yeah,
like a Leah, Leah would just go, you're in my way, it's your problem.
yeah, exactly,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but Radaglia was like, yeah, he just didn't
Little
play as assertively as I would have liked
little
for,
more passive, yeah.
yeah.
So what's the each one of you, what is your bold prediction for the club or for the league this year that you're going to plant your flag on it and you're going to get people to go, whoa, I didn't see that coming? And at the end of the season, what is the headline in the Herald Sun about the Magpies? Whenever their season ends, what's the headline in the paper the next day?
Yeah. Pie's proven right. And this headline will be Snatch 17th flag. And then
Okay.
under that, it'll be the story a group of drunken Collingwood players stole a flag from the reigning premiers this year and ran off with it.
It's nothing about the Pies giving thanks to Cumberland.
No,
You
no.
didn't want to go back there again.
No. Well, maybe a bit later. Yeah, no, so Pie's proven right. So I'll be the optimist and just say, well, yeah, we'll win it. And then Kane Corns will go, oh, yeah, I got it wrong about the Pies. So that's my shocking headline. Spook.
I don't think that far ahead. I don't want to think that far ahead. Um, is there something about 17 that I could throw in there? What's the significance of 17 apart from that'd be the flag number?
Sweet
Is there
17.
a movie or some throwaway song?
No.
Oh, that'll be it
Well,
then. Just
you did tell me.
It's an old song from that band Winger from back in the 80s, I think that was called
Spook hates the
17.
80s.
That's a long time ago.
Well, Spook
oh,
did tell me off.
it was Edge
Go
of
on.
17. I don't know. By 17. That's as good as I can get. There's nothing you can work with. There's no material there.
Okay. Okay.
No one
So,
reads the Herald Sun anyway.
No, that's true. Well, like now that Mark Robinson's gone, they definitely no one will read it.
Well, maybe
Was
more
he
people
still
will
there?
now. Hey.
I don't know. Mark Robinson declares his undying love for Collingwood.
Yeah, I don't think you'll say that.
so, um, who do you guys see besides the Magpies jumping into the 8 this year that's not there or
That's
wasn't
not
there?
there. I don't even know who the other clubs are. Fremantle will be an interesting one.
Yeah, hard
Of
to
the
tell with
ones
them. I
out.
think yeah, we as we talked, I think North are a good chance. Gold Coast, and what
Yeah.
do they do off season? John Noble will
They
drag
did.
most of the money.
Yeah. Well,
Surely they're due to
um,
come good.
they
Well,
really didn't do anything they haven't done under any other coach. They started
Well, which
well,
is not
looked
play
good,
finals.
and then it all turned to crap.
that's true.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do. They always promise a little bit. I got to look at the ladder. Yeah, I can't see Melbourne changing anything. Adelaide will be an interesting one. They picked up a few players, didn't they?
Yeah, they improved last year. Yeah, there'd be a chance. When were they?
Oh,
But
it's
they
hard.
were.
It's hard not to improve. They're coming from like 17th.
Uh, it's
When
been
you
a
think
couple of
about it,
years for
West
them.
Coast,
They've been out of the eight or out of the eight
yeah,
at final.
Yeah.
about 5 or 6. They should have been in it 2 years ago when they got that
Mm.
crappy decision against Sydney. Uh, yeah, I actually don't know in terms of like Essendon. Yeah, they're interesting. And they'll tease for half a year, won't they?
I don't. Yeah,
As usual.
I'm not seeing. I'm not expecting much from Essendon or St Kilda this year.
Yes, the
Saints,
Killer was the next
they'll
one.
go backwards.
Yeah, I
That's
think.
that's a Ross line trade.
Yeah,
I think so. I think the Eagles are going to be a little better because you can't be much worse. Um, and I think the Tigers are going to be ugly for a couple of years, but then they may bounce back pretty quickly because they they're retrofitting that house. They tore that thing down to the studs and are just rebuilding it from the ground up, and it may
yeah,
they may turn around fairly quickly. Who knows?
Mm.
I'm yeah. So before we wrap up, gentlemen, you guys ready for a little bit of your annual Magpies trivia here to see if you can
yeah. Let's go
handle
for it.
some of these? Okay, we'll see. Some of these are extraordinarily difficult. I mean, these are the most difficult Magpies questions I could come up with, and none of them are actually to spell magpie.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
That's a relief. Lucky.
So, these these four players they kicked at least 20 goals at the club last year.
Oh, it was Hill and Schultz were the top two.
Uh huh.
I think Nick Dacos was one of them,
Yep.
and I'm pretty sure it was one of the other midfielders because um, all the forwards are injured. Um,
Mia Jack was
or
he had a reasonable tally before he left.
yeah, it would have been the
It's not
high
Mia.
teens, I think. Or it could have been Elliot, could have been the other one
It
up
was
there.
Jamie Elliott. Yeah. With
Yeah.
21. Yeah. In a condensed season. Yeah.
Yep.
Now I think that you're going to get this one, so maybe I should just ask for the number, but I'll ask it as I jotted it down here. Who led the club with 493 meters gained per game last year?
Mick Cumberland.
So that career as
It's
a coal
got,
miner coming handy.
well, surely that's got to be Nick.
It was. Yep. It was. Yeah. Okay. So the next one. Which two clubs have the Magpies defeated more than 150 times in the club's history?
Ugh, more than 150.
And I know you weren't at all of them.
Footscray. Will Bulldogs be one? No.
Have we defeated Geelong more than
No, sir.
150?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Good question.
I'm just thinking because I don't know if it's still relevant, but it
Saints.
was
You
you're
say
The
the
just picking all the
Saints?
Saints.
crap teams.
The Saints are one of
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Yep.
No.
Melbourne.
And that's the other one. Yeah. Yep.
Cumberland.
St. Kilda
Teddy
and
Landry gave
Melbourne.
it
Yeah.
away.
Yep.
He said,
Yep.
I've fucking had enough of this shit. You
Now,
can't beat him. I'm retiring.
here's the flip side of that question. In their history, which two clubs do the Magpies have a sub 50% winning percentage? So they've
It's going to
lost
be
more than they've defeated.
the new ones. So
West Coast.
That's one of them. Yep, 48.3. And that's the better one of the
yeah,
two.
I was going to say I bet you it's something stupid like no, not stupid, but like GWS
Mm-mm.
or Gold Coast.
Well, I would hope it wouldn't be Gold Coast, but it's
We
not.
Yeah, but
felt it had
we
more
were
than
crap
enough
for quite a
times.
while there.
So are they.
Yeah, but we were crap there.
Is it the Cats? If
It is
you
not.
stage this question,
No,
Nope.
you said it. No,
Bombers.
we're in front of all the Victorian clubs. We got we've won more than we lost against all the traditional clubs, so it'll be one of the new clubs. I'm assuming. Sorry. So it's not going to be Sydney. You said it's not GWS, it's not Gold Coast.
Brisbane.
Mm-hmm. It is the Lions. Yep, it is the Lions.
Does
Yeah,
that
because they're
count? I mean,
dominant. We were
Yep.
crap
So
during that period.
we would have
Brisbane, yeah,
beaten them when they were Fitzroy.
43.9%. Yeah.
How would
So
actually I won't bring that up. I was going to talk about grand finals, but they're in front.
No, don't.
Yeah, they're 2-1.
so who won more games as a Magpies senior coach, Lee Matthews or Nathan Buckley?
I suppose Buckley was there for what, 10 years?
Was it? I thought it was
Matthews was what, 90.
10. He was there for 10. I mean, what Buckley have 4 years, 5 years out of the finals. What Matthews have 86, 87, not in it, 91, 93.
Matthews
So,
was there 86 through 95, and Buckley was
yeah,
there 2012 through 2021.
I'd say Bucks probably does.
yeah, I'd think so.
It wouldn't be by
Buck,
much.
Buckley 117 wins, 99 losses, and 2 draws. Lee Matthews 125 wins, 95
Yeah.
losses, and 4
What,
draws.
what do
So
we know?
and only
Yeah.
8-game difference. Only an 8-game difference. Yep. Okay, who led the club with over 9 1-percenters per game last year?
Jesus. Yeah, I'm just going to go to Nick Dacos for all these answers. Anyone else have a good
That's
year?
the easy one.
It will not be him.
If in doubt, pick Nick. Schultz?
9
Nope.
1-percenters.
Yep. 9.25.
Hill?
Darcy
Not
Moore.
Bradley Hill? Oh,
Darcy
Darcy
Moore.
Moore, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
It's a pity about
Yep.
his 99 percenters.
Okay. So, who kicked more goals in their Magpies career, Sav Rocca or Peter Dacos?
Oh, in the Magpies career, because he left, he went to North. So what Dacos ended up on 450, I think. I know Sav's up on about 800,
Yeah. I'd
but
say
some of
Sav.
those are for North. Yeah, I'd say Sav also.
Sav kicked 514 and Dacos kicked 549.
Oh, 549. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, here we go.
Pretty shocking.
Here is our last one. Besides Scott Pendlebury's final game, whenever that is, who are the other 2 oldest players to play for the Magpies in the 21st century? One you've talked about rather prominently today.
Vic
Nick
Cumberland.
Dacos?
Imagine it's got to be side bottom. Imagining wrong. Ah.
Nope.
Oh, no, wait. Bucks would have been, what, about 34?
Yes, he's one of them, yeah.
He's
Nathan
one, okay.
Buckley. Yep.
Oh,
This one's a little more obscure.
So would you say it was in this century?
In the 21st century, yeah. So since 2000, yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna go back to like 1894 or something like that on you. I wouldn't do that.
You're just biased against Vic or Vic Cumberland. It's out of the equation now. Let's see. So it's not side bottom.
You want
then it would
the initial, the first or last name?
No, we'll get it without the initial.
How
Totally.
patient are the listeners? We could be here all night.
Well, some of us have to go to work here in just a little bit, so
No, you
that
don't.
won't be the case.
Yeah, look,
No,
I'll concede. I have no idea.
Yeah, give it an initial then.
First or last name?
Last.
H.
H.
How? It's not how, is it?
Nah, would be half.
Mm-mm.
Oh, it's interesting on H. Yeah, you're not going to work, I think.
And it was his only year that he played for the Magpies. It was 2013.
2013. So what's that? Hudson.
Ben Hudson, yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
impressive that you got that. I applaud you for that. That was good because he'd played for the Crows and for the Bulldogs prior to that. And
yeah, Spook thought it was.
he only played seven
Yeah,
games that year.
yeah. Spook thought it was Hicks.
Okay,
Or
Hayden
Hudson.
Hudson.
gents, before we go, we do need to discuss important things. Where can people find Collingwood Rant, and when are you guys going to be ramping things back up for your listeners?
I think that's a really interesting question, isn't it, Spook?
After we lost to Sydney last year and we're out of the finals, I cracked it big time and pulled the pin. So, and he hasn't produced a good enough argument to say come back yet.
You took all your toys and went home?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's it. No, I wasn't happy with that loss. I think it still
I think it
haunts me
shows.
just how much they rolled over when they had that game won. Um, yeah, we're yet to decide
Oh,
on
we
where we're kicking off things from. Yeah, it'd have to be getting close, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but we are looking at coming back if to
Okay.
do it for Vic.
Yeah. To do it for Vic. Yeah.
See,
I'm
I
gonna
grew a
have to.
beard this year, so people wouldn't recognise me.
Maybe the Cumberland rant.
It's a Cumberland
I
rant, huh?
I shaved mine off so I'd look a little bit more like my little avatar that I put on my phone. So I'm this is yeah, I cut off all the gray hair because this way I don't have to tell my students at school, you see that one? You gave me that gray one. Uh,
There's nothing
but
wrong with telling him.
yeah,
Guilt
I
is
know.
an important part of a child's upbringing.
Exactly right. Exactly. Yep. Well, gents, I do hope you guys get back up and going. If you choose to do that, it's I
Oh,
love doing this. I think to me this is my hobby. It's cathartic for me. Um, to being able to chat with folks about this game that I've fallen in love with. Even if we're talking about the Magpies, but
yeah.
and I mean that tongue in cheek because when I was deciding on which club to support, they were in my final three when I boiled it down. So they
Who's
they
the
made
who's
they
the other
made they
one?
made the medal stand. Um,
Well, we could
Who's
have
the
had
who's the
another
third
reason
one?
for the Greys.
yeah, they did. Yep, they did that with they were up there with Brisbane. So it was the Cats in Brisbane and Collingwood were the three that I was considering. So, but
And why'd you
I
choose
do
the
want
Cats over the Pies?
I it was actually there was one particular player that kind of pushed me in. Plus, on my dad's side of the family between my dad, my grandfather, my uncle, my cousin, my brother-in-law, there was also like 175 years of working at Ford.
Okay.
Was another thing, and I kind of decided that I wanted to. I went with a like a smaller community club, I guess, yeah, because I narrowed it down into them and kind of like outside of the main hub. I'm not sure why my head was thinking that, but it's just kind of the direction that I went. Um, but yeah, it's been supporters of every club. After the initial, hey Yank, don't worry about our game. You stick with the gridiron, that sort of thing. People have been very gracious. They've been very welcoming to answer any questions that I have, and I'm never going to be so bold as to think that I know more about your game than people who have been following it for 20, 30, 40 years. I mean, I just love telling
He's
people
talking
stories
about
about the
Mark
game.
Robinson.
I was just going to say, I think as the trivia proves, we know nothing either. So,
You know what? You got Ben Hudson. Okay, you got
Yeah.
Ben Hudson, so that right there. That question was worth triple points right there. So any one of them you missed was erased by that one right there.
Well, it was really Spook missing him, not me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna ask Spook this one since you didn't get that one. So Spook, who was the only Magpie to have more than 100 tackles last year?
I mean, was it Schultz?
Nope.
I mean, we took him because of his tackling ability.
Yeah.
More than 100 tackles.
He was the only one that
Yeah.
had 100 more than 100 tackles last year.
I think you should probably propose the upper tackling machine.
Bo, but he missed a chunk, didn't he?
Yeah, I don't care. He would have got 100.
Was it Bo?
I believe he said
McCreary?
Bo.
It was Jack Crisp.
That name was sitting there in my head, but I didn't feel confident in saying it. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, you would have
Yeah,
Well,
proven
gents,
it.
we pretty
gen-
much warn people every time we do an episode that we do absolutely no research, and we just keep proving it.
but you know what? You got a club with a phenomenal history, um, a a promising present and a questionable future, knowing that they're going to have, that at some point in time they're going to have to churn the bottom of that list up a little bit. So I think you guys have a great shot at playing finals this year, because of if the veterans all stay healthy and that sort of thing. But as you said, that's kind of the uncharted territories maybe after 2025. It could be a very interesting year. You might actually have to do your research to figure out, hey, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Spook and I have mentioned that a few times when we look at, the practice games and we see players running around numbers we don't recognize. It's just like, who are these people?
Yeah, I mean, I when I first started watching the game, I mean, I remember you had a couple of the most unique names in footy, with of course Steel Sidebottom and then also Broomhead on the
Yeah,
side, gosh, I still vividly remember that injury that he had,
Yeah.
that
yep.
nobody knew that he had, because he's behind the posts. It
Uh,
was just that was awful. That was
Well, the
awful.
injury was such that he was behind and around the post.
Yeah. Oh my. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it an evening. Well,
and
gents,
so did
Thanks for having us on.
yeah, my guests have been Sly and Spook from hopefully the Collingwood Rant podcast. It's not, just by the very name, even if you are frustrated, Spook, if you are frustrated about the way the club ended, you have already built into the name of your podcast the very reason why you have to get it started again, because you have to rant. You can't
I'll
just sit
enjoy it
idly
properly.
by.
Well, maybe you should
No, there's
start
every
the
chance.
Zoom
There's
rant.
the ranting never stops.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Well, he did propose a different rant called the Disney rant.
the
And he just wants to
Disney
talk about
rant.
Disney. Yeah, just talk about Disney movies every week.
Oh, good Lord. Oh, thank you. No, I actually teach a class that is called Contemporary History Through Film. And it's amazing how the kids struggle with films that are so dialogue heavy. And I asked him, I said, and usually I get a couple kids. I said, how many of you have never watched a movie that wasn't like Marvel or DC or Pixar or Disney? And there's usually just a couple hands that go up. And I'm thinking, these guys don't know what acting is. All
Yeah,
they've ever seen is, animated stuff or people standing in front of a green screen. They don't know what, actual characters from films actually are. So, when we watch something like All the President's Men or The Big Short or something along those lines, and they're like, and of course we're watching I don't know if you've ever seen the film Dr. Strangelove.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Great
we're
movie.
watching
Best
that one in the
souls.
class. We're watching that in class right now, and inevitably when we're gonna finish it up probably tomorrow, those kids are gonna look at me and just go, "What the hell was that?" Because
Yeah.
it's
Unfortunately, a lot of the blockbusters and that they've just redefined how stories are told and not in a good way.
yeah, yeah,
Just jump into a lot of action and crap
yep,
and superpower
yeah.
characters and all that sort of
I
stuff. So,
I made I wrote it. I'm not a big fan of that genre. And when I guess it was something Avengers Endgame, I think is what it was called, came out a few years ago. I wrote a review of the film before it came out, never having seen it, just kind of tongue in cheek. And the kids were like, I shared it with them in class, and they were like, you were pretty much spot on with it. I still haven't
yeah,
watched it because it, yeah, And I joked, I said, the only, you're going to remember the one big special event or special effects moment. And I said, but if you enjoy that kind of stuff, enjoy the movie. It's great. I mean, have fun with it. It's just not my cup of tea. Well, guys, we could go on here for another, half an hour rambling about films and that sort of thing, but we're going to go ahead and wrap up here because you guys get to go to bed and I get to go to work. So
I don't think anyone's going to bed in this heat. It's boiling.
I'm sorry about that. I wish
Yeah.
you,
I mean, you
I'm,
should just stay here and watch Doctor Strangelove with us.
well, yeah, I've got kids will be in my classroom in about 95 minutes. So I need to get I'm usually in my classroom 25 minutes ago and I don't have to be there
Okay.
for another 45 minutes. So
You,
Yeah,
you
but
can
guys-
blame Zoom on that.
I will do. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you broke it. You broke it. Aren't you
Not
an
the
IT
last
guy?
time.
Aren't you an IT guy?
I can't even spell IT.
Okay. I think it starts with a T. Yeah. Okay, gents.
Yeah.
I hope you have a fantastic evening. I hope it cools down for you. Just a suggestion. This is a legit suggestion here. Okay. Here and I told somebody about this the other day. We use rice bags. And give me 1 second here. We have these little flannel bags flannel material that we fill with rice.
Yep.
And we put them in the microwave to heat them up and put them in bed to keep our feet
Yeah.
warm at night. You could take these, put them in the freezer to do the very same thing and drop
I
them
got
in
a ton of
bed
those.
and drop them in
That's
bed
a
and
good
put them by your feet to help keep you cool at night. So
Yeah, we might try that during the season when we're really hot.
there you go. There you go. Well, guys, I appreciate the time today, and I wish
Thanks
you
for
all the best.
accommodating us.
I wish you
thanks
all the
for having
best
us.
except for round 8. I hope you guys lay an absolute egg during round 8, to be honest with you, okay? But beyond that, I hope you have a great year.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, you too to a certain extent, not too much though. Not like 2011 or anything.
There you go. I'd be okay with 2022.
I'd be okay with 1929. So
I don't know about that one. I'd have to go back and look. Okay, well, cheers, guys.
okay, thanks.
Right.
You bet.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye-bye, guys.
See you later.
All right, Sly and Spook. Hey, guys, thanks so very much for sitting down to chat with me this morning. A lot of fun. I hope you guys have a great evening because you're going to be get to head to bed here pretty soon. I'm going to be going off to school and facing 130 high school students here in just a few minutes. But I truly appreciate you guys setting aside the time to sit down and talk. And I really, really enjoy chatting with you guys. You're passionate about your club, and it's just a treat to be able to speak with you again. So, folks, again, as I'd mentioned at the outset, you can find everything about the podcast over at my website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll get on the mailing list there, okay, so that when new episodes come out, they'll be in your inbox almost instantaneously. And if you've got an idea for an episode, maybe you know somebody who would be a great guest, maybe an AFL player or somebody that played in the VFL or something like that. Maybe you've got a relative that played in the league years ago. Maybe you've got a great story to tell. Like Damian Buttigieg, Stephen Campbell, any of the number of different guests that I've had on the podcast. Please reach out. You can shoot me an email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com, or you can drop me a note on my website as well. Also, if you're enjoying it, I do hope you'll consider subscribing to the podcast and telling your friends about it as well and sending them a link. Hopefully they'll check it out and they'll discover that there are people on this side of the planet that enjoy your great game as well. Now, ladies and gents, don't forget that if you need to talk to somebody, please reach out to them. Okay, check up on your friends, make sure they're okay. If you need to talk to somebody, please reach out, find somebody to talk to, go out, have that coffee, go out and get that snack, whatever the case may be. Just go talk to somebody. The world's a much, much better place with you in it. Okay, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, those numbers for Australia and the United States are in the show notes for every single episode of this podcast. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I do hope you'll share it. I hope you'll subscribe to all my socials. And as always, may your dribble kick never hit that post. I will catch you later. And the next episode that will be up will be the Port Adelaide Power. And ladies and gents, this has been episode 369. Cheers. And until next time, goodbye.